was the intro to OS X Tiger, something you'll see the first time that you buy a Mac and turn it on, or the first time that you install OS X Tiger, which is OS 10.4. The purpose of this video is just to show you, the viewer who's new to the Mac, some of the things that that OS X Tiger can do. A lot of people have asked when I talk to them about using a Mac, since I come from a Windows world, how it's different, what's different, and what's this thing at the bottom, and just basic questions that anybody would use the first time they use something that's new. So I thought I'd make a very quick demo, 5 to 10 minutes long, just to show you the basics. One of the first things you see when you start using the operating system is, of course, this dock at the bottom. So just quickly going over the options. As far as this dock is concerned, the purpose of it is just to hold the main programs that you like to use. You can add and take away as you like. Part of it is for applications. The other part is when you minimize programs, this is where they go. So you can increase or decrease the size of the dock, make it larger, big. And the other thing that will help you see the icons, especially if you have it quite small, is a magnify feature. So if we go to dock preferences and we turn on magnification, so then we go to these icons down here, they magnify for you, and they tell you which one you're using in case it's too small. Some people like to store a bunch of icons here, so that would be handy. For me, I don't need it off. But the other thing you can do, of course, is place it on the left or right or bottom of the screen. So left is actually on a different monitor from the one that you're seeing right now, but you'll have to trust me, it's on the left. The right side looks pretty much like the left, except it's on the left-hand side. You'll notice that you get a view kind of like this in the upcoming version of Windows, but we're not so big on I'm not so big on the right-hand side. I prefer it on the bottom. Some people don't even like to see it at all because it takes up, the size part of your screen, and some people like to see everything on the screen as much as possible. So we can actually hide the dock as well. So here's that minimizing function. So now you can see everything on your screen, and in case you want to load up another program, well, here it is. So here's the dock options. We'll take the automatically hide and show off. The other thing you can do, as far as adding and taking away programs I had mentioned earlier, is say you want to remove a program. Well, you can right-click it and delete, or add, remove, or there's no actual fancy options to do this. You actually just take the icon, drag it off, and that's it. These actually are all shortcuts, or aliases as they're referred to in the Mac world. So you'll hear me use the term aliases quite a bit. And so if I wanted them back, I just go to Applications and take iPhoto, drag it over to the dock, and there it is. Anything you drag onto the dock, the OS X knows that it's just going to be an alias. It's not going to be the actual program. So you're not copying it or moving it. It'll always stay here, but the alias will appear in the dock. Another thing you can do as far as dragging and dropping icons onto the dock is dragging over URLs or websites. So for example, here's the MacOS X Leopard sneak peek. And this is a website for Leopard. So that's on our little dock. So what if I actually don't want that? Well, just drag it off like that. But what if I say want to show somebody later, I want to remember it, I want to put it on my dock, take this little icon here and put it onto the dock, and it comes back. This is just a default icon for websites. So for example, I have another one right here, the Pessimist Mug by Despair. And so that is adding URLs to the dock. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do when you use any operating system is know where to find your applications and where to save them. In Windows, you usually see the Start menu, you select Programs or All Programs, and then you see a list of a bunch of programs. It's a little bit different in the Mac world because in Windows, if you go to the Program directory or the Program folder, and you go to the actual application folder, you'll see a whole lot of files in that application folder. It's files that you have no idea what to do with. There's just a bunch of, they're gibberish to most people. In there is the actual application, but very often you don't know which one it is. So Microsoft makes it easy by just making it a programs folder. In OS X, pretty much the entire program is one file that you can click on. So for example, if I open up the hard drive, go to Applications, and here is the application directory. You'll see some folders, for example, but this is a text file. The actual applications are pretty evident. So you can see these are actual applications, not a folder. Most applications just are one file unto themselves, not whole folders. So, for example, here's Firefox, here's Fuzz. So that is what you're going to see when you want to know where your applications are. Is if you let's do that again. This icon, or this your hard drive icon, will always be here in the top right-hand corner. So if you double-click that, go to your application directory or your application folder, and here you'll see all of your applications. It's pretty much that simple. As for where they're saved, you can choose wherever you want to save them, but it's quite easy to just select your own home directory. So in your home directory, you have obviously the typical the typical folders where you save your music, movies, your documents, and that sort of thing. All of these you can actually put onto the sidebar as well. And if you wanted to get rid of any of these, for example, movies, I probably won't need that icon. There's some stuff in there, but I don't need that there. It doesn't actually get rid of the folder itself, just gets rid of the folder from the side menu. Of course, if I wanted it back, all I'd have to do is just go to my home directory, and where's my movies? So if I move my movies here, and just put it where that line is, then I get movies back. But I want to get rid of that. So you'll also notice that when you shrink the window, very often you'll get the icons here shrinking as well. So that's not a feature so much as that. It's just something that's kind of neat. It lets you see as much as possible. And that is pretty much where you'll find all your applications. Your home directory is, like I say, where you can save most of your things. It's organized however you like it. You can create your own folder. Chose folder for doing anything. And of course, there's nothing in there right now, and that's pretty much where your folder directories are for your applications and for your home user. And speaking of programs, of course you'll want to know, how do you install programs? Whether you get a CD or whether you download a program, there's pretty much only two ways that you typically see as far as how to install a program. One way is with an application that actually comes with a package extension, PKG. That's an automated way of installing a program, so you don't really have to do much there. It's pretty much a click next and continue kind of process. But the more complicated way of installing an application is the way that you usually have to. So for example, we have Firefox downloaded. So after we finish downloading Firefox, this is what you're going to see on your desktop. So we double click this, and we get the accept agreement or license agreement. So now we have a little window telling us basically to move this icon where we want it installed. We can install it anywhere we want, but the application directory is where we're keeping most of our applications. So we'll just take this Firefox, drag it over to the application directory. Now there's already a version there, so we're just going to replace it. And this is the application process. So the install is now done. That was a difficult way of doing things as far as installing programs are concerned. So now let's run Firefox. And so we can see it's running just fine. So we'll just close this, and that is the installation program. We can get rid of the setup program. And let's say Firefox is a program that I want to keep for myself. We have a few people using this computer. What I can do if I wanted to was take the application, go to my home directory, and there's Joe's applications. And so I'll just drop it in here. So I have I can make a shortcut of it. In Windows it's called a shortcut. In Mac it's actually called an alias. So what we'll do is make an alias of it. The reason it's called an alias I'll mention in a couple of seconds, but for now, so here's an alias on our desktop. Now I've changed my mind. I don't want it in my home directory anymore because, say, somebody else wants to use it. So we put it back into applications. And there it is. Now I made this icon, this alias, right here when it was in my folder, not in the applications folder, my folder. So it probably won't run anymore, except that it does. So why is that? these aliases in the Mac world actually follow wherever you put the application. So I can move this application wherever I wanted to, and it'll work. So as another example, here's applications, here's Firefox. Let's say I move the actual application to the desktop. So there's the whole application of Firefox. Will this work? You betcha. So now that's running, we'll close it down again, and let's just put it in the trash. Is it still going to work? Oops. No, but it did actually say that that's because it isn't going to run because it's actually in the trash. I discovered this by accident one time. I actually put the application in the trash instead of the shortcut, instead of the alias. So we'll just open up this. We'll put this back in the desktop. Actually, you know what? Here, we'll put this back in applications. And now try to run our program. And it runs just fine. So that is installing an application and actually being able to move the application wherever you want to as well. When people consider buying a Mac, a lot of times their main question is, what about compatibility? I mean, people are used to using Windows a lot, and some people are using a Linux, but there's always the question about compatibility and, can you open sound files? The answer is yes, of course. Can you open images? And of course the answer is yes for that. Videos? Absolutely. In fact, the process for making sure that a Mac is compatible for watching your videos is pretty much identical to making sure that Windows can open up your videos. Sometimes you have to download codecs, but the bottom line is it's the same for both. As for applications such as Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft actually does make applications for the Macintosh, like Microsoft Office, for example. Here you see Microsoft Word. One of the first things you'll notice is that it does look a little bit different from the Windows version, but it's important to also consider that everything, as far as compatibility is concerned, is maintained. Microsoft runs the Microsoft Office program, so you can be rest assured that it's going to be compatible. So I mentioned that does look a little bit different. So here, if we open up a blank document, one of the things that you can do is have a formatting palette. So if you open up a document, you have access to all the different kind of formatting options for editing a document. You don't get that in the PC version, but that also shows you how different the Mac Business Unit is in Microsoft. But at the same time, they keep complete compatibility with their Windows version. So here's something that was created in Microsoft Word for Windows. But you open it up in the Mac, and it pretty much looks the way you'd expect to, doesn't it? I mean, the contents looks the way it should, the tables look the way they should, and so on and so forth. This is something I downloaded from the internet. So again, some random file I have no problem opening up. And again, here we can see you can do whatever you want as far as adding indents, types, borders, and shading. And yes, perfect. So you can do all kinds of editing, and this is the Microsoft Word version. So there's Word, but there's also Excel. We're going to not save this because I pretty much did that one in. One of the options you can do in OS X, if you right-click an icon, you can have it show in Finder. And again, in Finder, that's the same thing as Windows Explorer. It allows you to see files and such. So if you show it in Finder, it'll open up the folder where we have Microsoft Office. Now, I created this background for this particular folder, so I'll show you how to change that in a few seconds. But here's Excel. So there's Word and Excel, and let's open up Excel. I downloaded again a random file from the internet, and let's see if we can open that up. There we go. So again, it does look a little bit different from the PC version in that this is a sort of a free-floating window. It isn't tied right to the application, kind of like the way you see in Windows, but that's only a difference. It doesn't make it any less compatible. So if we change this to 100%, everything looks pretty much the way it should. And you have these notification windows and these comment windows. Again, they were imported. They look just the same as they do in the Windows version. So you can see this number stored as text. But again, you also see the little formatting palette here. So an addition that you get with the Mac version, but also you maintain your compatibility, which is nice. So getting back to that folder, I mentioned that you could also add any kind of picture or color that you want to in the background. You can do that with the background options here. So if you go to, we'll just change this to white. And we'll close this. If you go to View and Show View Options, Command J is the way to get there. You'll have all kinds of different options, and one of them also is icon size. In Windows, sometimes the icons and the text don't flow too well the more you expand or contract the size of the icons or the text, but here you can see that everything just flows like the way you might expect, or perhaps even a bit better. So that is one way of viewing the files, and of course the other way is through a list. I think we talked about that earlier, but the other things you can do in a list, the view options change depending on how you're viewing them, and one of the ways that you can view the files in a list is to calculate all sizes. So right away you can see the size of all the files and the folders, but I wouldn't put that on all the time because that just takes up a lot of hard drive time, but you can turn it on or off and you can see it in real time. So that is compatibility and some more folder options for you. So there's about 4 things that were introduced to me personally with OS X Tiger. Some of them actually started out with just OS X, but with Tiger it culminated in a bunch of features that come with OS X that just blew me away. And so the first one that I found was just super handy is called Expose. The name will make sense when you see what it can do. The idea is if you have a bunch of applications open, or even just one but with multiple documents open, it exposes all the programs that you're running, so it gives you a more clear image as to, or clear idea as to which applications you're running, and allows you to choose which one. So one of the ways that I opened applications, or switched to applications rather, before, was using, in the Windows world, it's called Alt-Tab. So you Alt-Tab between applications. There's QuickTime, there's iPhoto, there's my address book, and there's a calendar, and there's Safari, and so on and so forth. So, and sometimes, and by the way, this is something that's interesting with OS X as well. When you're you're alt-tabbing between all of these programs, you can also use your mouse if you wanted to. This is something I noticed that you cannot do with Windows. I tried to do it in Windows one day just instinctively after using a Mac, and I couldn't do it. I thought, how odd. But anyway, so this is kind of interesting. But now, also, even doing the alt-tabbing or command-tabbing between all the applications, that can get old, especially if you have a bunch open. So one way to get an overall view as to what you have open, press F9. There are mouse equivalents to doing almost everything that you're seeing. So you can use the mouse for all of this. For my purposes, I'm just using the keyboard. So F9 shrinks all the applications, as you can see, and makes a little window of them. And so you can see everything that you have open. So rather than command tabbing to everything, I can go to wherever I wanted. So F9 again, go back to my address. Oops. F9, go back to my... Now, what if you had a bunch of different documents open? Well, here, look. There's this. If I can actually Alt-Tab between these two windows as well, and it'll open up the other window. But what if I want to get a good look at them side by side? Or what if I had 5 or 6 of different windows open? Well, F10 will open up the window, or the windows of the same document that you have open. So say you have a bunch of different documents in Word or Excel or an audio editing program, whatever the case may be. In this case, I have web pages open. So this will just show the documents you have open in one program. So F9 shrinks all documents. F10 shrinks the documents of the existing window that you have open, the existing application. So F11 then actually doesn't shrink anything. It actually gets rid of everything. So if you want to see the desktop, there it is. F11 again will bring everything back. So you have F9. Have F9 open there. F11 is your desktop. That actually brings us to the next application, which I thought is really cool, which is called Dashboard. It is actually used with F12. Now, as you can see, Dashboard kind of fades the foreground and brings in from the background these applications. The purpose of Dashboard is just to use this space for little applications. Applications that don't take up too much resources, but are still very functional, very handy. One of my favorite applications is just the calendar and the weather. I often press F12 just to get an idea of where I stand. Where am I today? It's Saturday and it's reasonably nice out for autumn. But here you can actually add a lot more stuff too. But speaking of stuff, this is a little dictionary, very handy dictionary. I want to look for stuff, and there it is. How handy is that? Handier than my bookshelf, I'll tell you that much. But if you want to add more, here's a bunch of stuff that comes with the operating system. Now you can actually download over, I think it's 4,000, they're called widgets, little applications. 4,000 of them that are available. And of course you can actually program your own if you happen to know a little bit about Java and CSS or HTML. I don't know anything about them, so I let other people program them for me. But so here's a couple of examples. There's a calculator. Well, how often do you use a calculator? Me, a reasonable amount. So this calculator is very handy to have. But what if you also want to have the temperature in more than one city? For me, that is actually not unusual. In fact, here, let's do this. Let's just change the city. We'll change it to, say, Toronto. Toronto's a nice town. So we Toronto, Canada, and Ontario. And I don't really care about the 6-day forecast for Toronto. So, oops. And you know what else? I also don't care for Fahrenheit. No offense. I'm a Celsius guy. So there is 60. Yes, and for, there we go. So there we have it. So there's Toronto right now. There's Winnipeg plus our 5-day forecast. The other thing, of course, that I think is really cool, very handy, is the translation program. So one of the neat things that it can do is say English to French. I want to know how to say French in French. Français. What if I wanted French fries? Pommes frites. So it adapts with the more you type, of course. I use this with somebody I know who knows Chinese to see how well this worked. Hi, how are you today? And it turns out it works pretty darn well. So this program is something that I use a lot on for the dashboard. So I can take out this, for example. Say this, I can move over here. And now F12 brought the screen to me. F12 will take it away. So now I'm back to my website. But if I wanted to, forgot what the temperature was again. Oh, here it is, F12 again. So F12 is a very handy key for me for a bunch of different uses. So that is dashboard. Now, one of the other things I thought was just immensely cool was Zoom. I've seen operating systems for the past at least 10 years, maybe 12, 15 years, they have an option to zoom in on a certain part of the screen. That was kind of cool, especially if you're visually impaired. It's kind of cool to be able to see things that are much bigger. But what's also neat is if you saw everything bigger. And here's an example. So now you're seeing everything. The whole screen that's much bigger. You can zoom, you can move around. You see the text that's bigger, and you don't need one little small area that's magnified or anything like that. The whole screen is magnified. So let's just unmagnify it. Now we're back to normal. So that is Expose, F9, F10, F11. And that is also Spotlight, F12. And, sorry, this is called Dashboard. Thank you. And lastly, we also looked at Zoom. Very handy utility. One of the last things I wanted to point out about macOS X is the Spotlight option. The option for finding files and even text in files within on your hard drives. So, for example, I might have written a movie review of something. So, movie review. And you can tell just as I'm typing all this out, it's actually finding everything as I type it out. If you ever use the Windows find, even if you narrow it down to the exact folder where the document is, it usually takes you a little while to even get there and modify it, and it takes a bit of time. I've actually seen it and used it where I've typed in the exact name of the file that I'm looking for and it still doesn't find it. I don't know, maybe you don't have that problem, but I just find that this is a lot more elegant, a lot quicker to do as well. So here's my little movie review. But what if I wanted, I couldn't remember the name of the title. I draw a blank all the time, but I knew it was about, say, Sylvester Stallone. So I type in Stallone. And, well, now there is a mail that I wrote to somebody. So I thought it was a document, but it was actually a mail message that I sent to somebody. So, but I do know in my movie review, I wrote something about Sylvester Stallone, and I know it was about Rambo. So let's look for Rambo. Oh, well, there you go. So there's my movie reviews. If I even forgot the name movie reviews, but I knew it was about Rambo, there it is. It shows up. So it's very handy to have. So let's take a look at this. Oh, well, as you can see, I'm actually just barely even starting it. I haven't even given it a title yet, for Pete's sake. But the point is, it found it, and what a wonderful thing that was. So let's try this one more time. But instead of just typing it, and by the way, you may have noticed that I didn't actually press enter at any time. As I was typing the text, it was searching. But if I do press enter, it gives me all kinds of options here. So if I press enter, I can do a lot more things. I can group it in certain ways. I can expand or reduce my searching. But I can also right-click on some items that are found and just get more information on them. Or, as I did earlier, reveal in Finder. So I'll open up the folder where it exists. And here's actually, it's right in my Documents folder in my home directory. So easy to find once I know where it is, but I forgot where it was, so Spotlight saved the day. Actually, this reminds me of something that I'll just do very quickly. Here's a trailer, and I'm not sure what this trailer is, but let's see here. If I actually did this, get info, and this icon could tell me something about it, well, wouldn't that be nice? So, oh yes, I have the website still open. So in the future, I may not have the website open. What I'll do is copy the image. I just right-clicked it and selected copy. I'll go to my trailer icon. You'll notice I selected it, the icon here, and it turned a little bit of a blue background. And I just do a paste. It's like a Control V, just like in Windows. And now you see the icon there. So what we'll do is get rid of this, and we'll get rid of this. And we'll look at our icon views here. Oh, there is Borat. So, and again, Option J. If I expand the size of the icons, you can see a nice big picture of Borat there. This is not a plug for Borat. It just happened to be the webpage that I was on. So those are most of the options and features that come with OS X that I've just found. That actually what turned me over to OS X. Or to the Mac itself. I was in a Windows world for most of my life and not really much of a Mac person, but as of OS 10.4 I just find that the Mac pretty much is a good 2-3 years ahead of most everything out there. And the nice thing is they're actually not sitting on their laurels. A new version of OS 10 is coming out in the spring, and it will be called Leopard. So you can look forward to that. I know I am. They have a lot more neat things that are coming. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it useful. And thanks for watching.